Okay. You know, my greatest passion in my life was actually to be a missionary. I was going to be the next Hudson Taylor or C.T. Studd or one of those great champions. The nations just burned in my heart with incredible intensity. In fact, I ended up pastoring really by chance. My real heart was the nations. My real heart was to be a missionary. So in 1980, with my wife Adrian, we headed off to the Philippines. We landed there in Manila and set up in Cebu City, a large team at that time, Philippine Aid Ministries. After 3 years, in 1983, we returned to New Zealand, defeated, demoralized, discouraged, depressed, our dream in shatters and badly bruised. And I made a decision in my heart at that point that basically I was finished with nations and I had no intention ever to go back. A number of years later, 10 years would go by, and I got a phone call from India. A guy said, would you come up and speak at a conference or a seminar in India? And I just said instantly no, and I didn't even think about it. And I went to my wife. She was ironing. I can still remember the picture there. And I said, honey, you won't believe this, but some clown from India has asked me to go up and speak there. And she said, what did you say? I said, no, obviously, you know. And she just said, looked me in the eye, Mike, and said, did you pray? I said, don't you love wives? You know, like that. They're so bad, honestly. I said, I don't need to pray. I said, there's some things I just know. But of course, you know, it reflected in my brain, and I went away and I prayed. Long story short, I went up to India. I landed in India and had to do a six-hour journey from India to the seminar site, something like that. It was 45 degrees in the shade. Our refreshments was hot watermelon that tasted like toast. We got to our hotel room and there was a bee's nest outside, and so we couldn't open any of the windows, so it was probably 50 degrees inside the room. I ended up having to share my room with an Indian who I did not want to be with. Now, I can say that I'm an Indian myself, all right? And I didn't know who he was. He was in the midst of nowhere. And I remember saying to myself, as I was in India, I was thinking to myself, how could I have been so stupid to ever come back to the mission field? And I really felt that. And so here I was in a country I didn't want to be in, rooming with a person I didn't know or didn't want to share a room with, in conditions that I did not appreciate. And then realized that God had set me up. Two or 3 days into that trip, on a day like any other, when the sun rose as it did every other day, it was still 45 degrees in the heat, and I was still very unhappy. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, it's like heaven opened up, and God granted me visitations of Himself and of His Spirit, like I didn't even know was possible to experience as a Christian. I'd enjoyed His presence. I'd enjoyed a great relationship reasonably with God, but this was a whole new world. And it's like God opened up. His presence was unreal. His voice was just, at times, just so clear. And the sense of God just at work in my spirit, bubbling away, almost on a non-stop basis, was just an amazing thing to enjoy. And that would continue on. Those experiences that I had like that, would continue for the next 3 years. And each experience would last between a month and 3 months. And I just lived in a sense, in a realm of God that was just unreal. You'd never ever want to leave that realm. I tell you, there's no experience on planet Earth that can match the reality of the presence of the living God, impacting your heart and impacting your life. Out of those experiences, my life would be forever changed. I'd never be the same person again. As I was flying back from India after that first trip, the presence of God all around me, I happened to pick up a book by Smith Wigglesworth on faith. And as I began to read that book, God just powerfully impacted my spirit on the whole message of real faith. And I underline that word real faith because there's a lot about faith going on today and has over the years that I don't necessarily feel as real faith, but God began to deeply impact my life in that area. And it was interestingly, a number of years before that, 2 men of God in this nation had prophesied over my life. One was Frank Houston, the other was Peter Morrow, and both had said the same thing. They said, God is going to work faith into your life, and then you'll be able to blaze a trail and break through into territory, into Holy Ghost territory, and then others will be able to follow after you. I hadn't really thought much about that, and then God came and visited my life. Since then, I've been on a journey for the last about 14 years. That was back in 1993, and God has put, in the terms of my relationship with God, God's put 2 tremendous passions within my heart that I don't have to look for, ask for, pray for. They are just there. One is a journey to knowing real faith, and the other one is a journey to knowing God as much as He can be known while on planet Earth. And that's the 2 great longings of my heart.